I think it's quite befitting that David spoke about the leisure aspects when it comes to hospitality. So what is whetting the appetite of investors to put in money in resorts? When I think of resorts, I think a lot of times leisure is seen there, but also it's beautiful how it contributes to the communities that are living around it. Although it's not just leisure, it can be used for businesses. I can think of many reasons why investors' appetites would be whet for this. Please help me welcome to stage to moderate this conversation, Justin Kenny. A round of applause. I spot him. I was trying to spot you. Hey, how are you?
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Justin Kenny. I work for Colliers in the Middle East and African region, senior consultant with them. Today, we'll be visiting what is weighing investors' appetite towards resort developments. I would like to introduce the two industry leaders that we have as panelists today. The first one, Chris Toit, who is the head of commercial for Collins Group. Chris has extensive experience within the African region as a developer, mainly focusing on leisure-focused hospitality developments. Please welcome to the stage, Chris. The second colleague I'd like to introduce is Artur Gerber. He is the CEO of Toit Blue, and he has spearheaded multiple resort developments globally. Toit Blue has a profile of over 360 resorts worldwide, housing over 285 beds within this. So please welcome to the stage, Artur. Please, gentlemen. So just to set the stage, in recent years, the resort segment as a whole has seen some significant challenges and changes, mainly driven by changes in customer behavior. Definitely, as mentioned in the last panel, the increase of capital expenditure, construction costs, as well as multiple global events that have shaped the leisure market as a whole, and in particular resorts and their appeal for investment in the region. What we'll be focusing today, of course, is the opportunity on Africa, given its very unique and diverse natural landscape, and as well the cultural richness that really lends itself well to a leisure-focused resort development and investment opportunities. Moreover, we'll be looking at key trends, challenges, as well as opportunities that are shaping investor mindsets within the region. So, Artur, I'd like to start with you. And I just want to understand, from your perspective, just kind of outlining us the current market landscape when it comes to the resort market in Africa. What do you see as the current trends that are really appealing or weighing on the minds of investors within the continent?
Yeah, first of all, we see a huge increase in demand for leisure travels in our whole group. It's not only the brand I'm responsible for, it applies for the whole Toit group. Luckily, after pandemic, because as everybody knows, the business was dead for 2 years, and luckily we are back in the business since 2 years. And this year's figures are very promising, so the hotels are really well booked. So we're looking for a great year. After last year was also good. And leisure is something where we are in. So we strongly believe in this kind of business model. We have been successful doing that in the past, and we will continue doing that. And trends in this field, it's very, customers are getting more demanding. So when we talk about experience, guests are not only looking for a bed and something to eat and something to sleep, they also look for experiences. So we are forced to look for new activities which we can offer to our guests, which is challenging on one side. On the other side, it's something where we are, I think, really good in to discover new things, to bring new products on the market. So this is what we are doing at the moment. And when it comes to Africa, so we are really committed to do something in Africa. As you know, we already established in North Africa since years, Egypt, Morocco, Tunisia, we have a lot of hotels in operation. Then we bought something a couple of years ago in Zanzibar with one hotel. Now recently, last week, we opened a new brand in Zanzibar, the Mora, which is run by us as well. So they are radio hotels on Zanzibar. So we invested in Senegal already. And now last week we announced, after a visit we did 2 weeks ago in Kenya, we announced that we're going to look seriously in the Kenya development. And when we talk about development, we talk about more hotels, not just one, and not only one brand. We talk about 2, 3 brands in one region. So this is what we are doing at the moment.
Thank you very much. And kind of looking at it from a micro perspective, Chris, from your experience in Botswana, in Seychelles, as well as South Africa, what are also some of the key trends that you're seeing? Of course, Artur mentioned regarding experiential travel, experiential activities. It's not just a room and board type of offering that we're looking for now within our leisure products. Can you give us any micro examples or real life examples within your portfolio?
Yeah, I think COVID has taught us a few lessons, of course, and the market's changed a little bit in terms of that demand for experience. But I think even before COVID, guests were starting to look at more flexible options. We find guests they'll book holidays long in advance just to have a bit of flexibility, make sure that they're not necessarily tied into a group. They've got more of a private experience, and they've got flexibility in everything that they do. In terms of experiences, yes, that's a very important factor that's come out of COVID. I think a lot of our guests are looking for unique experiences in areas where they would not have traditionally traveled to. We've got a very strong conservation angle across our portfolio. And one of our new projects, the Club Med South Africa development, it's a unique product worldwide where you'll have a bush experience and a beach experience all tied into one package. And I think we've seen strong demand since COVID, and I think that experience side of it is a key driver of that.
And sticking to you, Chris, as well, regarding as a developer and as an investor within the region, what are the key challenges that you're currently seeing within the investment landscape, particularly for these leisure-focused resort developments? And what are the best practices or certain strategies that you've used within your company to mitigate these challenges?
Yeah, I think a lot of these challenges have been spoken a lot at this conference specifically. I think from an investment point of view, ESG has become a major factor. And that covers everything, as we heard this morning. It covers 17 principles, of which one is conservation. We've got a very strong conservation angle to everything we do. But we take it one step further. It can often, for certain financial institutions, the ESG side can be a box-ticking exercise, but we as developers and investors take it one step further. So we are heavily invested in a large carbon offset project in Zambia, which obviously facilitates some of the impact that the leisure hospitality industry has on the environment. And we, as I mentioned earlier, we take conservation seriously, but not just, the normal visitor to Africa thinks conservation is all about protecting rhinos and wildlife, but it's also protecting our oceans. So we are very active in the conservation side and the oceans and water quality and water all over Africa, and we take measures to enhance the ESG requirements in that sense.
And Artur, on your end, in terms of key challenges, it was discussed quite a bit in the last presentation by Wayne, but regarding capital expenditure and the rise in construction costs, of course, this is a bit more strenuous when it comes to resort developments, especially on the higher end once you reach the higher chain scales. What are the current trends that you're seeing right now in terms of mitigating that capital exposure when developing resorts?
That's a good question. I mean, it's a lot of money you're going to spend to set up a resort. What we do, it's already said, we have to look about the whole range, every stakeholder involved in this investment, the partners, the destination itself, the local government. So everybody has a stake in this kind of development. And we are going for partnerships in all these regions to let's see how to mitigate the risk, always to our benefit and making the best out of it. But we always try, together with partners, to see how the development will be also in long term. It's not, we are not the investment what we do by ourselves. It's never a short-term investment. This is long-term investment, also with joint venture partners since decades. So which means there's a big trust in this kind of business model. And also to mitigate the risk, we talk about cluster setting up. So which means if we set up a cluster, like for example in Zanzibar, we run there 4, 5, 6 hotels, and at the same moment we are able to bring own flights to Zanzibar. This will start from this year winter onwards. So TUI owns 130 airplanes, which is also then mitigating the risk in this region because we have it in our hand to bring occupancy to the island and help to mitigate the risk in these regions. But at the end, I mean, if you decide to invest, you must be clear that it's always long-term investment. Everybody wants to get his money back. But on the other side, restrictions, like you mentioned, increasing in cost for materials, you have to deal with that and try to leverage as much as possible. Also using group synergies you can find everywhere to make the best out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think you brought up an interesting point regarding clustering of multiple opportunities, either from an operator side or from an investor side. You're able to kind of curb in terms of negotiating with your contractors, but as well within the operation itself, there's a lot more fluidity in terms of the profit levels that you could expect with clustering. Artur, I want to stay with you in terms of product differentiation, especially at the development stage. We talk a lot, within the operation, of course, the service levels, the types of activities in resorts, you can highly differentiate yourself through your experience. But is there any key insights you can provide us from when you're initially investing or looking to open up a resort? How can you really create that value proposition and differentiate yourself, especially in established markets?
We gain a lot of insights from our guests because we do a lot of questionnaire work with our guests around the world. So we look for trends and how these trends will influence our business model. So recently we see something in the luxury segment. So the brand I talked about is the Mora in Zanzibar. So we said it's a kind of laid-back luxury product, which is maybe new on the market. So just a sample, you can breakfast the whole day, so there are no restrictions in terms of timings and hours. You can decide how you want to fill your minibar. You can have private wellness sessions as when you like them. So a lot of things we have decided to bring to this kind of product. So, but you have to listen to your guests. At the end of the day, even if we like to have such a hotel and such a product, if the guest does not like it, so then you lose. So at the end of the day, you have to see it through the eyes of your guests because they are the ones deciding how to do that. And this is where we always try to find differentiated products. And therefore, we say, talking about these clusters, it's better not only have one of our brands, maybe 2, 3, 4 of our brands to sacrifice then the needs of the customers. So they can decide then in which region, in which hotel they want to spend the holiday. And one of the biggest differences to a business hotel, if I look to Europe, take the average length of stay in a resort. So in our resorts in Spain, Greece, so the average length of stay is close to 9 days. And you are a lot of experts in the audience running hotels. So it's a big difference to design a hotel where the guest stays 9 days instead of maybe 1.1 or 1.2 overnights, which means you have to consider all these kind of things in food, beverage, entertainment, childcare, if you have families as well in your resort. And this has a big influence on the style of the product and also on the design of the product. And things like ESG are playing a big role in this field as well. So you have to establish all these kind of measures, running successfully a resort, not only for 1 year and not only for 1 season. So this all comes together. Sticking
to the topic of differentiation, Chris, I'd be happy to hear from you. Considering your portfolio of resorts as well as lodges within the region, what type of advice would you give an investor who's looking to develop either a resort or leisure-focused development in terms of how they can set themselves up for success in terms of competing with the wealth of different type of lodges within Africa?
Yeah, I guess you have to offer a unique experience. You have to guests are very conscious these days of things like ESG, as was mentioned earlier. I think you got to plan for that, and even to simple things like we've spoken a lot about brownfield versus greenfield investment. Greenfield investment is always easier because you can plan for green building practices, whereas a retrofit on a brownfield development is a lot harder. And guests are conscious of these things. They want to know that they're staying in an environmentally friendly environment and that they're staying in a resort or in a facility that's built to best practice. So you have to differentiate yourself in that sense, but then also offer, in our case, certainly a unique experience to a guest, because we find some of these niche facilities that we own, guests are willing to travel to get there, but you've got to offer something quite unique to them.
And just sticking to also the niche segments within the resort space, given your expertise and your portfolio within the region, I wanted to understand and gauge the investment appetite going forward for more differentiated, more unique type of offerings such as wellness or adventure camps within Africa. What do you see occurring in the next few years?
Yeah, I think there's a big growth potential there. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen strong growth in occupancy since COVID, certainly in some of these facilities. The rates have caught up now as well. But there's vast areas in Africa that have got great opportunities. We hear and we talk a lot about North Africa and Southern Africa and the Indian Ocean islands, but we haven't spoken about Central Africa at all almost this week. And we've recently started doing some work in Central Africa to see what opportunities are available, and it's vast and it takes time. Greenfield developments take a lot of time, as you know, but across our 54 countries on the continent, there are vast opportunities, and we just have to explore and find them.
Sticking to another niche category outside of wellness or adventure, Artur, I'd be curious to know your perspective in terms of the evolution of all-inclusive resorts within Africa, and how do you see that landscape evolving in the next few years?
So in general, we offer the whole range in our hotels. We offer hotels with bed and breakfast, half-board, or even all-inclusive. It always depends a bit on the region. So if we find regions where we have sufficient supply in terms of restaurants, bars around the hotel, so in these cases, we always consider, does it make sense to sell all-inclusive or not? Because the guests should have an experience as well, going outside and enjoy something around the hotel. But when it comes to regions where maybe the local infrastructure is not that developed, that you find a lot of possibilities to do something outside, then we always say then it might be better to stay to all-inclusive. All-inclusive has some advantages also for the guests, so the budget is very clear. They know exactly what they pay for, especially when you travel with families. It's quite famous that they know exactly what the kids are spending or not, so you can control these kind of things. But we do not necessarily say always our resorts have to be all-inclusive. This is really dependent on the market, on the infrastructure, and also on the competitive set. So if you are the only one doing that and everybody around you sells something different, this might be always a challenge. So we look quite careful in that. And we believe that it's also beneficial for the regions, because maybe even if you're all-inclusive, you get a lot of products locally, you source locally, you have a lot of other business with local people. So it's not that you steal some business here and there. So we strongly believe that we, from time to time, we make our mind up and say, but what does make sense depends on the region and on the location itself. This is quite crucial.
Yeah, definitely. As far as my understanding for all-inclusive resorts as well, the air connectivity to major hubs within Europe and outside of Africa, within Africa as well, is a crucial part of it to ensure the charter potential to drive these high-volume hotels. within kind of these smaller sub-markets within Africa, would you see this being a key challenge going forward in terms of the air connectivity to other major markets?
You mean when it comes to air traffic?
Yeah, when it comes to air traffic. So first, I'd like to ask if you agree in the point that there is a requirement that you need to have these large charter flights to drive these high volume hotels. And then secondly, what are those challenges in terms of if you don't have that, if you want to develop all-inclusive in more remote destinations?
Yeah, it's a bit like a chicken and egg. We have a lot of samples. It's always the question, do you need first how many hotels you need before you are able to setting up flights? So in this case, I always use Zanzibar as a sample, the Cape Verdes and also Senegal. So we have to have first a couple of hotels, and then at least it's possible that we are able to have own flight supply as well. But this necessarily does not come along at the same day. So it's always a time in between. But at least you have the chance, and at least our advantage is that a lot of African countries like South Africa, there we don't have hotels at the moment. We work on that, but the TUI as a tour operator has already business since decades in these countries. So for us, it means we do not start always from zero. So we have, most of the time, we have a base, a fundament where we can work with local partners, also DFC business, which is owned by us in a lot of cases, or we have local partners, and they also help to supply and find guests also for the local business, filling up the hotels. It's not always only their own planes coming, or the own cruise ships, which helps a lot as well. So we have destinations where we have good occupancy because our cruise ships, we have 18 of them coming to these cities as well and help us. But at the end, I believe we want to grow with franchise and management opportunities, but also we have a global international investment fund helping us to make this growth happen. And then over the time, we must be able then maybe to leverage our whole ecosystem, including the flight supply.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all we have for today. And please give a hand for our panelists. Thank you.